Hours before he landed in Jakarta, Vice President Hamid Ansari termed the India-Indonesia link a happy friendship. But he stressed that it could not be taken for granted and had to be looked after, taken further all the time. The India-Indonesia relationship, political, cultural, economic, social, human and so much more. That's the subject of our special report on Rajya Sabha television. I'm Vaibhav Varma, reporting from Jakarta in Indonesia. Vice President Mohammad Hamid Ansari in Jakarta, continuing the flurry of high-level bilateral visits and meetings between India and Indonesia. An old and deep friendship to be renewed, that's how he termed this Indonesia visit, while exploring what more synergy could be generated from the relationship. The closest physical distance between India and Indonesia, between the lowest tip of Andaman and Nicobar and Sumatra Island, is about 70 nautical miles, merely a shout away, as one former Indian president put it. Strategically and security and trade-wise too, the Indonesian archipelago of more than 18,000 islands is of vital importance to India. 4 vital straits running through Indonesia control so much of India's links to Southeast Asia. This visit then is about taking the relationship forward, both the practical aspects and the inherent human warmth.
The challenge is how to contemporize the old heritage. We have great warmth, as I'm sure you have felt during your visit to Indonesia. The challenge is how to make it a modern relationship. And that is why in my book, Masala Bumbu, we have tried to get together people who are actually trying to say what is the new agenda we can do. For instance, we are both democratic countries, we are both pluralistic countries, we are both youthful countries. But do we do something to sustain these ideas?
A slew of bilateral meetings with his counterpart Vice President Kala, with the Indonesian President and between delegations highlighted the positive atmospherics of the relationship at the highest level. Vice President Ansari's visit to the Indonesian Parliament and meeting with speakers of both houses held a deep symbolism, harking back to the birth of the two independent nations. At independence, both nations adopted a form of parliamentary democracy. Despite a period of military rule in Indonesia, democracy has taken firm root in this sprawling archipelago. And elections here have the same chaotic and exuberant timbre that characterizes polls in India. In his meetings, Ansari highlighted just that deep commonality that touched all spheres of the relationship.
No one has interpreted better the true nature of India-Indonesia relations than Rabindranath Tagore, who visited the archipelago in 1927. He movingly opened his famous poem to Java, and I quote, "In a dim, distant, unrecorded age, we had met, thou and I, when my speech became entangled in thine and my life in thy life." Unquote. He spoke about the journey by our ancestors that resulted in the two lands becoming companion souls. Citing the tragic divide created by colonialism, he urged a renewal of age-old ties, and I quote again, "That old that has been lost to be regained and made new.
For decades, the commercial aspect, trade and business, has been at the base of links. Whether in terms of commodity exchange, investment opportunities, tax benefits, or measures to build on all and any of these aspects. Indonesia is India's second largest trading partner in ASEAN, and bilateral trade stands at $20 billion. India is the largest buyer of crude palm oil from Indonesia and imports coal, minerals, rubber, pulp and paper. India exports refined petroleum products, maize, commercial vehicles and pharmaceuticals. Indian companies also have some $15 billion worth of investment in Indonesia in areas of infrastructure, power, textiles, steel and consumer goods. Despite sizable growth in these numbers from what they were a decade ago, there's a strong feeling of potential unrealized. Governments on both sides, traders' lobbies and various business fora say much more is possible.
From India, if you look at pharmaceuticals or IT or infrastructure like, for example, the metro railways. Now that is missing, right, in the Indonesia growth story. If you look at India, for example, there are certain aspects, Indonesia has huge plantation forests, and in our own construction, we are looking at low-cost housing, the retail sector. Indonesia is very strong in this, which we require over and above the standard, coal and palm oil. So I think there's that whole exchange which has to take place.
The Indonesia-India Business Forum has been a key facilitator in this direction, bringing together CEOs, entrepreneurs and professionals for a concerted effort towards enhanced economic engagement.
India Business Forum, I believe, is an initiative by the Embassy of India at Indonesia, particularly Jakarta, and it aims to bring about various investors, businessmen, economists and others together with government agencies, be it in Indonesia or be it India. It also promotes delegations from India to Indonesia, and perhaps Indonesian delegation to go to India, they facilitate.
Business and trade extends to the entire gamut of regional and global issues: defense and security, renewable energy and climate change, maritime cooperation, and much more. On this visit, India and Indonesia signed an MOU on new and renewable energy. Both have earlier committed to reducing carbon emissions by 35% by 2030. It is a vast canvas that's growing all the time. A powerful economy and India's second largest trading partner in ASEAN, a slew of initiatives to make the most of potential on both sides, and rising cooperation in the political and strategic areas is just one part of the larger picture. India-Indonesia links arise so primarily out of deep-rooted cultural and historical bonds between the two sides. We'll have more on just that on the other side of this break. Stay tuned. Vice President Ansari's very first official engagement on arrival in Indonesia was a visit to the Grand Istiqlal Mosque. Masjid Istiqlal in the heart of Jakarta is the largest mosque in Southeast Asia and the third largest in the world. Indonesia's national mosque. It was built to commemorate Indonesian independence and termed Istiqlal, an Arabic word for freedom and liberty. Masjid Istiqlal's location next to the Merdeka Square and Jakarta Cathedral is symbolic also of a deep communal harmony that Indonesia's founding fathers saw as the country's cornerstone, an echo of India's own intrinsic ethos too. Tanha Lot Temple on the coastline of Bali, one of hundreds of such Hindu temples dotted across the island that make it one of the top tourist destinations of the world today. Somewhere, these temples are also emblematic of the deep social, cultural and even religious link between India and Indonesia. Tanah Lot, literally land in the sea, stands on a rocky island just off the southwest coast of Bali. The large offshore rock has been shaped by the seas for centuries. The 16th century Pura or temple is believed to have been founded by priest Nirartha, one of the last priests to come from Java to Bali. Varma, the sea god, is the presiding deity. The temple is dedicated to guardian spirits from the sea. Vice President Ansari's visit to Pura Tanah Lot held up a strong symbolism of attachment.
From the 1st century, we have the group from India coming to spread out Hinduism, and then followed by the 4th century till the 8th century, influenced by the Buddhism cultures from India, and then starting from the 14th centuries, we are developing Hinduism, also spotted from Indian studies as well, philosophies. So that's why starting from the 1st century until the 14th centuries, they are developing mostly Indian cultural philosophies in Indonesia.
It's taken on the term Balinese Hinduism in Indonesia. There are close to 20,000 puras in Bali, with Hinduism the predominant religion in the island. Outside Bali too, there are puras in other parts of Indonesia where there are a significant number of Balinese people. Aside from the Indian influence, official figures put the number of people of Indian origin in Indonesia at 120,000, about 10% of them non-resident Indians. Most of them are concentrated in Medan and Jakarta in Sumatra. Hindus, Muslims and Sikhs, some of whom have been in Indonesia for 4 generations now. An exact figure on their numbers perhaps remains elusive, as many have merged and assimilated with the indigenous population, indistinguishable from native individuals.
For example, in the middle of Jakarta city, you have the Krishna Arjun statue, like the whole Rath, you know. So if you go to Bali, you go to Jogja, you go to these places, there's a lot of Indian aspects culturally, religiously, you know, based in Indonesia. I think we've gone way beyond, you know, in terms of friendship, in terms of culture, in terms of family values, in terms of culinary. I think we're very, very close. We have a lot of similarities, and it's carried on forward for so many centuries. I think because the youth always seems to find this attractive nature in each other's cultures.
Officially, Sahabat India, a festival of India in Indonesia, reflected that vibrancy and vigour of India's social, economic and cultural engagement with Indonesia taken to a new level. The stress of the event, held between January and May 2015, was on the commonality of cultural heritage and harmonious linkages over centuries, and a long-standing, steadfast friendship. Cultural exchange was the subject of the second Memorandum of Understanding signed during Vice President Ansari's visit to Jakarta. India and Indonesia are among the two youngest nations of the world today in terms of youth population, and many initiatives are directed towards them. The annual Miss India-Indonesia contest, open to Indian girls living in Indonesia, offers a journey of music, dance, fun and friendship, while preserving and strengthening their own culture in their own special way.
And these are young girls between 17 and 27, you know. So we have this beauty pageant that we sort of train and groom them, and also introduce them to both the cultures and keep a balance for both the cultures. And the winner of Miss India Indonesia then represents Indonesia as an Indian in the Miss India Worldwide pageant. So she competes with 40 other countries from 40 other contestants from 40 other countries.
Youth power, collaboration in education has often been cited as the direction of the relationship ahead. Founded in 1962, the Udayana University has emerged as among the most respected institutions of its kind, and it's made a big mark in the area of international knowledge exchange. The university has 22 faculties. Educational and cultural exchange has been a thrust area for the Udayana University down the decades. The Bali International Program on Asian Studies, BIPAS, at Udayana University is the only genuinely international study program in Bali, with students from 15 countries participating. UNUD's interaction with universities in India runs deep too. Indian texts, ancient Indian science and culture, language, phonetics and semantic studies are part of syllabi, upgraded frequently. Signing of an MOU with India on Ayurveda is a notable landmark in this direction.
Apart from this, in research, for example, and then also exchange staff or faculties. Since before the year of 2000, we have already got the visiting professor from India to Udayana universities to build or to strengthen the understanding of Sanskrit studies in our universities. Now that is regularly from year to year. Yeah, and then in the future, we need in Udayana University to develop, not just in terms of studying Sanskrit, but also maybe Ayurveda, for example.
During his visit to the Udayana University in Bali, Vice President Hamid Ansari unveiled a bust of Mahatma Gandhi on the campus. Later drawing a historical roadmap of Indian cultural streams in Indonesia. Addressing students, Ansari urged Balinese scholars to take part in capacity building programs hosted by India, giving them a comprehensive sense of why India and Indonesia are natural partners in education, culture, politics, economy and spirit. As he invoked the glory of Nalanda and age-old links between the two countries, the Vice President spoke of a vibrant future ahead in taking the tradition forward.
Education, ladies and gentlemen, will be the key to the success of our people in the 21st century in India and Indonesia. In India and Indonesia, we have several world-class institutions and universities. There is a need to have regular exchanges of teachers, scholars, and students between our academics and research institutions. We would be happy to share our expertise in different sectors with the faculty and officials of your university under the spirit of South-South cooperation. We would also be keen to host your faculty for postdoctoral research in India on subjects of mutual interest and benefit.
India with the world's largest youth population, Indonesia at third place after China, albeit at a large distance. But the fact is, they are at the center of the forecast for India-Indonesia synergy and bonding ahead. History as well as engagements in the modern day have shown up vast overlaps in just about every arena: political, social, cultural and strategic. And that is certain to influence the road ahead.
When you look forward, I think the next century, the next 100, 200 years will really be about how our huge youth populations look at our culture and reinterpret it, in their own context, which is very young, dynamic, connected, populations, possibly looking at connectivity through social media, through the internet, forging friendships in a very modern context. And I think that should be facilitated in this relationship between the two nations.
For both New Delhi and Jakarta, further gearing ties to a synergetic relationship, smoothing the path, has to be the way forward. Realizing potential in trade and commerce is closely interlinked with the already present deep cultural ties. I'm Vaibhav Varma on Rajya Sabha Television. Thank you for watching this special episode on India-Indonesia, a timeless bond.